The movie opens with a view of the Los Angeles skyline. A guard loads materials into the back of an armored truck, then takes a seat on the passenger side. The van begins to move, and the men inside start talking. Suddenly, a truck parks diagonally in front of them, blocking their path. A man steps out and points a gun at them, just as another person begins cutting through the van's side door with an electric saw. A device is thrown inside, disorienting the guards and throwing off their senses. Dazed, they are pulled out by the attackers. The robbers grab the bags that had been loaded into the van, just as distant sirens begin to wail. A burst of radio static is heard, reporting that the two guards have been shot. The robbers escape the scene in a hurry. Meanwhile, Patrick Hill enters a building where his manager, Terry, briefs him on Fortico Security, a company that provides specialized armed truck services and secure deliveries across Los Angeles. Terry explains that they act as middlemen, transporting millions of dollars daily. He adds that this is why they offer extensive training and high pay. Terry appears pleased with the references from Hill's previous job at a security company. He asks about Hill's family, to which Hill replies that he's divorced and has no other attachments. Terry then shares that a few months ago, they lost several guards on the job along with a civilian, and the culprits still haven't been caught. Because of this, the company has increased their firearms training to 16 hours. Later, Hargreaves meets his trainer, Bullet, who dubs him H and puts him through an 8-hour training course requiring a 70% pass. Despite struggling at the shooting range, H scrapes by with the minimum score and is cleared to start the job. Bullet takes H to the locker room, where guards are changing. He shows H his locker and introduces him to colleagues Hollow Bob and Boy Sweat Dave. H makes a remark that offends Dave, starting off on the wrong foot. After suiting up, H receives a temporary sidearm with a reminder to respect it and bring it back in one piece. Bullet informs Dave that H will be replacing another driver and partnering with him. Dave warns H that their job is dangerous, and they're the prey, not the predators. Bullet jokes, then tells H to join Dave in the truck front. As they drive, Dave asks H if he's heard about the murdered guards. Bullet tries to stop him, but Dave insists H needs to know. H responds that he's heard, and it's unfortunate. Dave reveals he was supposed to drive that day, but was sick, though Bullet retorts he was hungover. Dave insists it was sickness, adding that staying with his mother gave him a solid alibi, or he'd have been a suspect. They arrive at a building, and Bullet mentions it's a $2 million pickup for the U.S. Bank, joking that H will get to meet the lovely ladies inside. Dave stays in the truck while H goes in with Bullet. Bullet introduces him to the security guy out front, and they head inside. They push the rolling cart out with Bullet making humorous remarks. They load the bags into the truck with Dave's help. Back at the workplace, Dave is surprised H didn't mess up on his first day. Bullet says H will grow on him, while Dana says she already likes him. Stewart remarks that H seems overqualified with a mysterious past, to which Dana replies they're all overqualified with their own histories. They scan their cards and head inside, but Bullet stays behind, inviting H for beer and pool as a first-day tradition. H agrees, asking for a few minutes. After Bullet goes in, H scans his ID and inspects the wall of IDs before entering. The group is playing pool at different tables when they inform John that he'll soon be replaced by H, taunting him about it. John walks up to where Bullet and H are playing, trying to provoke H. Calmly, H hands him some money and tells him to buy a beer and drink it elsewhere. John takes the money and walks away. Dave and H sit in the truck on a job, growing concerned about why Bullet is taking so long. Suddenly, the radio crackles, and they hear a struggle. Bullet's voice comes through, saying they're going to kill him. Another man takes over the line, threatening them. If they want to see Bullet again, they'll follow his instructions to the letter. Dave starts to panic, mentioning the company policy and suggesting they drive away with the 10 grand in the truck. H, staying calm, tells him to pull himself together. He adds that if Dave doesn't want to stay, he can get out, but they're not leaving Bullet behind. He's one of them. Dave seems to think it over and, after a moment, starts driving based on the man's instructions. Following the voice's directions, the truck arrives at a deserted street with a car tailing them. They're instructed to park in front of a vehicle where a hooded man emerges, pulling out a tied-up Bullet. As the voice issues commands, Bullet shouts a warning about their seriousness, only to be silenced by a gun butt to the head, knocking him unconscious. The voice then orders them to open the van and hand over the money, but Dave warns H that opening it would be futile. They'll take the money and kill them all regardless. H tells Dave to leave it to him, then opens the van's back doors and starts tossing the bags onto the truck bed parked behind them, deliberately dropping one on the floor. A hooded man emerges from the car, pointing a gun at H and demanding he load the bags properly. H apologizes, then shoots the man before eliminating the entire crew with cold precision and efficiency. H follows the man who was giving instructions into a building and shoots him. He demands to know who he works for, but the man curses in response, refusing to cooperate, so H shoots him in the head. Bullet and Dave appear stumped when they find H standing over the man's body. H heads outside and inspects the faces of the dead men on the street. They're questioned one by one, and the FBI agents seem particularly suspicious of H's impressive marksmanship, especially since his earlier tests showed he barely passed. H explains calmly that the pressure of the job, the kill or be killed mentality, helped him focus his mind when it mattered. The agents exchange glances, not entirely convinced by his answer. Then, they pull up the security footage from the first robbery and show it to him. The grainy video plays, showing the heist in detail, and the agents ask H if he notices any connection between that robbery and the one they're investigating now. H watches the footage carefully, but after a moment he shakes his head and says he doesn't see any connection. Terry informs H that due to the recent incident, he'll be on desk duty for a while. H nods silently, absorbing the news. As they talk, the owner of Fortico, Blake Halls, steps in. He introduces himself to H, offering a brief but appreciative thank you for his efforts. Blake then suggests that H take the rest of the day off. H walks away, and Blake tells Terry that they need H in the field. He tells him to promote him and not punish him. The FBI agents talk to their boss, Agent King, over the phone and confirm that it was him. Agent King says he suspected as much but wonders what he was doing there. They express their worry that they'll be in trouble if they left him there since the Bureau has been trying to catch him for years. King tells them that money doesn't mean anything to him, and as far as they know, he's just a regular guard doing a good job and to let him be. A woman arrives at his hotel to deliver a dossier containing Fortico personnel files and the autopsy report for the first robbery. He inspects all of the files. Meanwhile, H goes into work and receives applause upon entering. 3 months later, Bullet and H are on a job when a motorcycle blocks their path. The rider fires a shot into the air, causing people to scatter. They shoot the front window with black paint, and H tells Bullet to reverse. Bullet retorts that he can't see. They also spray the rearview mirrors and attach a device to the back of the van, which begins emitting smoke inside. Bullet radios for help as the smoke fills the van, and he exits, coughing. H follows, holding a cloth to his nose with guns pointed at him. Moggy, confused, asks Mike, who has just gotten into the passenger seat, why they pulled out when the van was already open. Mike looks as if he's seen a ghost. Later, in the office, H recounts the story, and Terry asks him to repeat it when he tells them that he lowered the cloth from his face, then they turned around and left. Blake seems convinced that Mike must have made a reputation from the last time and praises him. After H leaves, Blake turns to Terry and asks why he's being so cynical. Terry replies that he's beginning to think H is a psychopath. Dana invites H for a drink, and they end up sleeping together. Meanwhile, Bullet tells Dave it seemed like the robbers recognized H, as if they had seen a dark spirit. Bullet adds that H is not a cop. Dave replies that he hasn't trusted him since the first day. H sits with Dana in her living room and asks her about a stack of cash he found at her place. She doesn't take him seriously until he shoots the couch right beside her. She then admits that she found it signed for at work and stole it for her retirement fund. H points to a picture of her parents on the side and threatens her, warning that if she's withholding information, he'll find out. 5 months earlier, the scene opens with a flashback of H talking to his son, Dougie. They're making plans to grab some food together. H's phone rings, and it's Mike asking him to do a simple recon job. H declines, but Mike insists, explaining that Brandon had an accident and Moggy is on a recon elsewhere. H tells him his son is here on holiday and asks Mike to postpone it. Mike retorts that it'll set them back 3 months and insists it'll only take a few minutes for H to observe the truck from a distance. H drives to the location, telling Dougie to stay put while he goes out to grab a burrito. Dougie agrees and puts on his headphones. Mike calls and asks which direction the truck turns. H responds, watching the truck make its turn. He soon loses sight of it as it moves out of view, only to be ambushed by the robbers. Meanwhile, one of the robbers orders Dougie out of the vehicle. Dougie attempts to call his father, but the call doesn't go through as H is finishing his conversation with Mike. Dougie exits the car and lies on the ground as instructed by the robbers just as H approaches and spots him. H starts running toward Dougie and sees the robber shoot his son. The man turns toward H and shoots him in the shoulder. As H falls, he memorizes the man's face. 3 weeks later, H wakes up in the hospital, disoriented. The doctor informs him that they removed 6 bullets and performed several operations. Then H asks about his son. Dougie's mother accuses H of killing their son despite his denials. He insists that it wasn't his doing. Agent King and H have a conversation in a car. King informs him that they have no leads on the case. He hands H a list of known truck burglars, but H quickly concludes that he'll handle it his own way. King tells him he'll turn a blind eye for a while. It is then revealed that Hill is actually Mason Hargreaves, a notorious crime lord. The team offers their condolences but informs him that they haven't found any new leads. They've exhausted their resources and killed many people in their search for answers they couldn't find. H, visibly frustrated, tells them it isn't acceptable. They kidnap a criminal named Jerome and torture him for answers. After some time, Jerome breaks and gives them a name. Following the lead, the team raids another criminal's den, but Hargreaves kills the men after realizing they aren't the ones he's looking for. Mike warns him that continuing to operate this way will get them caught and suggests it must have been an inside job. Hargreaves apologizes to Mike for involving him and lies, telling him that he plans to lie low in London for a while. Hargreaves adopts a new fake identity as Patrick Hill. Kirsty briefs him on his entire forged background, and he asks her to bring him a copy of the Carnage report. Infiltrating the company with his new identity, Hargreaves takes pictures of the IDs to have them scanned. He also receives the autopsy report and the personnel files from Kirsty. A group of disgruntled Afghanistan veterans, Carlos, Sam, Brad, Tom, Jan, and their former Sergeant Jackson decide to steal from Carlos's boss, an oil tycoon. Carlos tells them that he hasn't been paid any overtime. Jan, the man who shot Dougie, asks Carlos why he doesn't make the tycoon pay. Carlos directs the question to the sergeant. The group turns to Jackson, who asks if they keep cash. The group robs the tycoon's residence, but the money they come up with isn't as satisfying as they had hoped once they split it equally. Jan shows his dissatisfaction and disrespects Jackson, prompting the others to remind him to address Jackson correctly. The group then comes up with a different plan to steal a larger sum. Jackson informs them that they have a man on the inside at the truck company. Once they get the money, they'll split it 7 ways. He advises them not to buy anything flashy and to keep a low profile. They ambush some workers, asking for the name of the truck driver, and coordinate their actions to pull off the heist. Jackson celebrates his birthday and tells the group he has another job lined up, one that's bigger, with a larger payoff. He mentions that they have a reliable inside man, someone who served under him in the military. Tom notes that the downside is it will require more planning and increase their risk of exposure. They agree to commit to 6 weeks of training and reconnaissance. They camp out at the target location waiting for the truck. When Hargreaves parks his car and steps out, Jackson instructs the team to keep an eye on it. They go on to execute the robbery as planned. Jan needlessly shoots both guards and kills Dougie as well, causing panic among the others. Hargreaves runs toward his son, and they see him coming. Jan shoots Hargreaves repeatedly, but as he falls, Hargreaves clearly sees Jan's face. They clear out of the place before the police arrive. 5 months later, the robbers regroup, and Jackson tells Jan he's lucky to still be part of the team after nearly getting them exposed. He then reveals a new, bigger job, one that, if done right, means they'll never have to work again. This time, they're not hitting just one truck, but all of them on Black Friday. The group is excited by the prospect of stealing $160 million, and Jackson tells them they have 8 weeks for recon and planning. Meanwhile, Hargreaves drives his truck into the workplace and drops off the bags. Terry watches him closely, appearing suspicious. Jackson says goodbye to his wife and kids, then makes a call, telling the person on the other end that everything is ready on his side, they just need to come through. Terry gives a speech, warning everyone to take different routes and ensure all the money is returned safely. Bullitt and Hargreaves head out with the others. Meanwhile, Jackson picks up Jan and scolds him for buying a property that could expose them and tells him that it isn't in his name. Jackson tells him they're leaving and goes out. After completing their final drop-off, Bullitt and Hargreaves are on their way back when Bullitt says he needs to tell Hargreaves something. He reveals that he's the inside man and points out which truck is the target for the ambush. Bullitt defends the earlier killings, saying the 2 guards had to die and that the boy was an unfortunate casualty. Bullitt then asks Hargreaves to let them into the depot that day and look the other way. When Hargreaves asks what's in it for him, Bullitt replies, "Your life." After a moment, Hargreaves confirms his agreement. Bullitt parks the car at their meeting spot, and Hargreaves plays along. He exits the car to have his hands tied by the robbers, who are all clad in heavy armor. Some of them get into the truck, and the rest follow in an Escalade. The car rolls into the workplace, and Hargreaves cooperates as they pass through. They get out of the truck and instruct everyone to get on the floor. They force Hargreaves to kneel and tie him up. Threatening to shoot Bullitt, they demand that the gates be opened. John hits the alarm and drops to the ground. The men by the armory start shooting at the robbers, managing to push them back, but the robbers blow the gates and start taking out the employees. Brad gets injured by a shot, but they manage to open the gate and let their Escalade in. They start loading the bags with cash, knowing police cars are arriving. Their plan is to exploit the window of time before a SWAT team arrives to avoid getting trapped. One guard opens fire, and Hargreaves uses the opportunity to kill the robber watching him. The guard dies from a shot, and Hargreaves grabs a knife and frees himself. He checks and finds that the robber was Carlos. He frees Dave and Terry. Dana moves around stealthily, collecting weapons. Stewart is in the van, talking on the phone with the SWAT team, keeping them updated. Hargreaves suits up in Carlos's uniform and shoots Sam. Tom shoots Dave and gets into an altercation with Hargreaves. Stewart takes one of the rifles from Dana and starts firing at the robbers. Meanwhile, the police and SWAT teams are en route to the scene. Hargreaves wins the struggle and stabs Tom in the neck, killing him. He pulls off the mask and composes himself before exiting the room. Dave rises and follows him out. Dana and Stewart start firing at the robbers. Bullet approaches them and asks for a gun. Stewart passes him a handgun, and Bullet uses it to shoot both of them. Dave and Hargreaves fire at the robbers attempting to get into their vehicle. Brad is shot and killed. Bullet shoots Hargreaves several times, and he falls. He calls out to Dave for aid, and Dave comes out unaware and gets killed. Bullet gets in the van, and they drive out. As the van passes by, Hargreaves sees Jan in the driver's seat. They pass through the police barricade as planned and are pursued by helicopters. Jackson, despite a neck injury, tells Jan to proceed according to their plans. They enter an abandoned lot and block the entrance. Jackson pulls out his gun to shoot Jan, but Jan disarms him and quietly finishes him off with a knife. Jan tells Bullet that the sergeant's dead, and they proceed to an underground point that isn't on current blueprints. They load the waiting vehicle. Bullet prepares to shoot Jan, but Jan is quicker, surprising and killing him. Jan finishes loading up the car and drives away with all of the money. Jan finds a phone ringing in the bags of money. Hargreaves, sitting casually behind him, asks if he's going to answer it. He asks Jan if he came after the money, but Hargreaves replies that he doesn't want the money and points a gun at Jan. He then throws Jan the autopsy report of his son. At the end, Hargreaves shoots Jan in the exact same place as Jan shot Dougie, telling him his son's name. He abandons the money and leaves, telling Agent King they're done. He gets into the passenger seat of a car, and they drive off.